After I got through the 30 guardsmen in the previous episode, I realized I was kind of in a bind. While I had 20 odd more men to go, I lost most of my extra guard bits a while ago and really had nothing left to use to finish these models off. Before turning to eBay though, I decided to dig through this old box from the same era as the trader guard models I used from before to see if I could find any additional bits or models that could help me out with this project. As mentioned last time, I was a huge fan of the Lost and Damned Army list from the Eye of Terror Codex, and this box is where the majority of my half-baked conversion ideas ended up, alongside a ton of extra bits, a nearly complete Rhino with extra armor, and other odds and ends. It took me quite a while to dig through this box, as every single thing I pulled out hit me with a serious wave of nostalgia from all these half-finished projects from 20 years ago. I remember the excitement when I first started these, and all of my plans for various armies that never quite came to fruition. I know that I'll probably need to cut some of these up to find a home for them in my Tyrants Legion project, and it makes me kind of sad to destroy these old pieces of nostalgia, I guess you can call them. But just getting a chance to give these models a new life makes me pretty happy, and it's a far better fate for them than just languishing in my closet, not really belonging to any single army. After everything was pulled out, I found that I had a ton of models that could work for this project, stretching across multiple lines and different kits, as well as a bunch of bits that I'm sure I could find uses for. Ultimately though, I decided that I would start with this squad here. As part of the lore for the Tyrants Legion, a large chunk of the fighting forces are borrowed from local planetary governors in the Badab sector, and are generally commanded by lesser nobility from these same governing families. In my mind, these lesser scions would be escorted to battle by their own household guard, and when I saw these old conversions, I immediately thought they would fit this role perfectly. Much like the guardsmen from before, I decided that I would need to start by clipping off some of my previous conversion work, including the heads and arms. These all came off pretty easily, and I was soon left with 5 pairs of legs and torsos to work with. At about this point though, my OCD kicked in, and I made an extremely questionable call. You see, originally on these models, I used legs from the old Warhammer Fantasy High Elf Archer kit, and as such, they come with some pretty dainty elf slippers for shoes. Of course, this just wouldn't do for my vision of the squad, so I got to work replacing every single foot with some spare Imperial Guard boots, taken from the half-completed models found in my stash from before. This process was super finicky, and I'd be shocked if anyone actually notices. But I think it looks better, so that's all that really matters, right? For the first few models, I left them pretty plain, and I just added some lasgun arms to them, as well as the same chem mask heads I used before from Victoria Miniatures. I feel like no Warhammer army is complete without at least one banner, and as this squad was really my only choice to include one in this army, I knew that I would need to. There aren't a ton of banner options out there for the old Cadian range, and I was running out of time to get this video done, so instead of kitbashing one, I just took this one from the command squad. This banner did have some detail sculpted on though, and while it's pretty cool and is a time saver when it comes to painting, I needed it to go as I wanted this flag to have the claw symbol of the Tyrant of Badab. This took a little while to scrape, sand, and then resculpt portions of the banner, and it still came out a little bit rough, but I think once painted it will look just fine. For the last members of this command squad, I added a missile launcher team, which is pretty much just the standard missile launcher pieces from the Cadian Heavy Weapons Squad, mixed in with the same High Elf Archer legs and Cadian torsos I used before. I did need to resculpt some of the pieces of my added chest armor though, which was done by simply spreading some green stuff over the torso. Details were then added, first by using the tip of a mechanical pencil to create some rivets, and then I used my hobby knife to create these little separators. As the green stuff is sticky, I always make sure to dip my tools into some water first, which seems to do the trick well enough of stopping my tools from sticking to the putty. Because the heavy weapon squads in this army are mounted on these 60mm bases, it really gave me a chance to add a ton of detail and make almost a mini diorama. So for this missile launcher team, I decided to use some plastic cake pillars that I then cut up and stuck onto the base to make them look like bits of destroyed columns. These are hollow, but it was pretty easy to make them look solid by simply filling them with epoxy sculpt and then using a torn up cork to add a little bit of texture to make them look like broken up pieces of rock or column. With that, the command squad was pretty much done, but I still didn't have anyone to actually lead this army. And even though everyone knows that the Space Marines are really in charge here, there still needs to be some top dog human around to blame when things go wrong. I'm not quite sure how it ended up in here, but I somehow have this Baneblade Commander sprue in my bits box, and it's kind of weird as I know I've never bought any of the Imperial Guard Super Heavy Tank kits. No matter how I got this though, I think we'll make a great base for my commander, as his long overcoat will tie him in visually with the rest of the squad. I don't really love the posing of this model though, as it looks like he's just standing around. So I got out my heavy duty clippers and immediately snipped off his torso. There's no turning back now. At first, I tried to use the plastic Commissar's torso and head. After putting the pieces together though, I know I made a mistake, as the Commissar's pose was just way too energetic for the feeling I was trying to go for in this model. So I went back to the drawing board and decided to use a few more bits from the Cadian command squad, including this overly decorated torso and swagger stick. These bits, combined with a las pistol arm, helped to push the pose more in the direction I wanted to go. You can almost feel the smugness dripping from him. I know I wanted to keep the same mask head from Victoria Miniatures I used before, but I wanted to stand out a bit more. And what better way to do so than with a gigantic cap? I ended up hacking off the top half of his head with my clippers, and then used the cap from the Commissar to give him, well, his hat. The fit was fairly rough though, and I needed to sculpt a small brim on the hat to hide my hack job, as well as a green stuff band where the brim was connected to the top of the hat. To finish this conversion off, I used a tiny skull from the shoulder pad of the 30k plastic chaplain I'm currently hacking up for another video. This was a complete pain to cut off and handle, but eventually I got it onto the right spot. I think small details like this really help to make Kitbashes look more like official models, and I'm quite happy with how this commander turned out. When it came to painting this squad, I pretty much followed the exact same steps as the rest of my troops so far. But at a high level, I dry brushed every model gray and then painted that same gray onto the armor plates. These were then sponge chipped before giving the cloth an overall wash of Abaddon Black contrast paint. As this army will have well over 100 models in it when it's all said and done, I need a quick painting process to get through all these quite rapidly, and by doing it with contrast paint and dry brushing, I was able to paint this squad in a couple of hours spread over 2 nights. If you want more detail on this process though, I do go into much more depth in my previous video, which I'll link below and at the end of this one. I'm really happy with how this squad turned out, and I think they look cohesive enough with the rest of my army so far, yet still distinct enough to mark them out as a cut above the rest. These also get me to 36 models painted for the army to this point, or about 250 points. So, still quite a long ways to go to get to a full 2,000 point army, but I think they'll be changing in the very near future. I've been having a ton of fun documenting my progress for creating this army, and hopefully y'all are enjoying coming on this journey with me and hearing some of my thoughts that go into building this army and the conversions it contains. As always, thanks for watching, and hobby on.